monitoring and accountability, specialized courses, programs, and opportunities, equity and access to instruction, innovative programs, materials, devices, and resources, and stakeholder input. And within this monitoring report, there are 14 areas that I will be covering. And being that this was our first study session with this transition with our annual work plan, I wanted to present it in a different way, and I look forward to getting your input and feedback on that, because at our next board meeting, which is when we will ask for approval, what you will see is that template that we've been using over the last few years. However, this information will be transferred there, and also narratives around a lot of the topics. The first area is the superintendent will ensure that instructional programs are based upon a comprehensive and objective review of best practices research. So in each of the 14 areas, I will be highlighting our interpretation of what that means, as well as a highlight or example of evidence that will determine whether or not we are in compliance. Here we have that we will use the most successful and effective instructional programs and practices available. And they are based upon impartial and unbiased investigation and measurable educational research. We also interpret this to mean that all district and site educational action plans contain evidence-based actions and effective instructional practices. I want to highlight evidence-based practices. For many years, we would hear research-based, but here we have evidence-based, because when we're looking at our compliance, it really centers around our school plans for student achievement, local control and accountability plan, as well as our LCAP federal addendum. And principals and at the sites are responsible for identifying whether or not the actions that they have in place are effective based on evidence. So it's not just the research behind it, but the evidence. And so what I will do, and what our team will do when we are providing that summary or narrative for the action to approve whether or not we're in compliance, we'll have a summary of and a narrative of what the sites and principals and district personnel do to ensure that there are evidence-based actions in those plans. The next area is that the superintendent will base instruction upon academic standards that meet or exceed state and or nationally recognized model standards. Our interpretation of this is that instruction is founded and built on district-adopted academic standards that comply with or are more rigorous than our California national standards. And we have some examples here of the evidence of our compliance, and that we have adopted and used California content standards, next generation science standards, model CTE standards, and of course, national educational technology standards. And we will add a summary or a narrative in more detail about that at our next board meeting. Number 3 is the superintendent will align curriculum with the standards. Our interpretation of this is that curriculum for all 4 content areas and the visual and performing arts is written to match the appropriate standards and include technology standards. All curricula include technology standards and are aligned to the National Educational Technology Standards. All CTE curricula align to the Model CTE standards. And all teachers have and use the most current standards-aligned textbooks and materials. And I want to highlight materials there because we know that we need to look at textbooks, updated textbooks in certain areas like in elementary school for history and social science. We are still really looking at science textbook adoption in high school. However, knowing that those are our next steps. We do provide those aligned materials to help support the instruction. Evidence of compliance. All core academic instructional resources are based on current standards. Instructional resources integrate appropriate technology standards with subject standards content. All career education programs use resources that align to those appropriate model CTE standards. And our 2021 annual accountability reporting of the California School Dashboard local indicator for LCFF Priority 2. And Dr. Pfeffer presented that at our June 8th board meeting. And reporting in this area indicates either full implementation or initial implementation in all areas except for our health content standards. Area 4, the superintendent will effectively measure each student's progress toward achieving or exceeding the standards. All district assessments, formative and summative, are aligned to the district adopted standards in order to assess the student's progress towards mastery of the standards. And I have a statement here. Due to instructional adjustments related to the pandemic, the district used multiple measures of student performance in 2020-2021. There were start of the year assessments, we had interim reports, summative measures differed by grade span. And before I even go on there, of course in September we're going to have a board study session for our results reports, so we'll be able to provide more information and data around all of those assessments. CASP assessments in ELA and math in grade 11, and the Renaissance STAR test in reading and math to students in grades 3 through 8 in lieu of CASP, which was administered at the end of the last school year. Now when we get to our board study session in September with our results reports, we will have that beginning of the year data to share with you as well.
Can I ask a question about what are the assessments that we'll be using this year for K-12?
So we will be using the Renaissance STAR assessment. All grade levels, K-12 will be administering that 3 times a year. So that will be a great tool for us to utilize and review the data across the district. Also, we are encouraging sites to utilize other assessments, whether they be from Inspect School City, IABs, anything else Dr. Pfeffer may want to suggest that they use as well. I think I got them all. I got the big ones. Yes, so what I think we're really excited about, is what I know I'm excited about, is that Renaissance STAR assessment, K through 12, and we in educational services are having dialogues in regards to what data we're going to pull, what data we're going to monitor in our target map, and we'll share more about that as well in September.
Okay, thank you. It sounds good.
Number 5, the superintendent will ensure that the instructional program includes opportunities for students to develop talents and interests in more specialized areas. We interpret this to be that all students will have access to specialized classes in subjects beyond the core curriculum and the opportunity to participate in extracurricular and co-curricular activities. Evidence of compliance. We have an annual reporting of the California School Dashboard. I'm referring to the same report that Dr. Pfeffer did June 8th in regards to a broad course of study. We also have our high school course catalogs that describe academic programs and courses offered in PSUSD. We also have a modified condensed season defined that occurred last year by the California Interscholastic Federation, or CIF, and in accordance with CDPH, which allowed for high school sports, as well as internship opportunities for career and technical education courses were held virtually. And as well in the template, in regards to when we're transferring this information for the report, we will also add additional examples or highlights of how our students were able to really tap into those extracurriculars last year, even though we did have school closure. Number 6, The superintendent will ensure an equitable instructional program that addresses the different learning styles and needs of students of various backgrounds and abilities. Our interpretation is that PSUSD delivers a wide variety of courses and instructional programs to meet the diverse learning needs of our student population. Also, teachers are trained and use a wide variety of instructional strategies to connect with the different learning styles of students. And what I'm really proud of is that last year, we can consider that a challenging year, and a lot of changes need to take place due to the format of instruction and that platform. However, we were diligent at continuing to offer training and support to our teachers so that they can meet the needs of our students. And evidence is the district offers a wide variety of instructional programs that meet the needs of students: our least restrictive environment, Head Start and state preschool programs, English language learner classes, advanced placement, NIB, International Baccalaureate, career technical education, after-school education support via ACES program, which was also modified during 2020-21 with our Learning Hub model during distance learning. Number 7, the superintendent will encourage new and innovative programs, carefully monitoring and evaluating the effectiveness of all such programs at least annually. Our interpretation is that educational services and other district departments initiate programs that feature new methods that are advanced or original in nature, as well as support schools' site innovative pilot programs. Programs are reviewed at least annually prior to being renewed. Also, during the school closure, some of the evidence that we have for some of the school programs, there was that district-wide movement to distance learning. There was professional development provided to staff. We continually supported staff throughout the school year. We had virtual labs, virtual college and career exploration, and virtual staff professional development. So I'm so pleased that we did not stop our focus. Due to the school closure, we just kept pushing ahead and working harder to ensure that we were doing our best to meet the needs of our students.
Simone?
Yes.
I'm sorry, maybe this might be a surprise question, but I think when my daughters were in school, where they were in school, their school, James Workman was considered a technology magnet. Do we still have schools that are considered, a STEM or STEAM, or we don't do that anymore?
You know, it's not that we don't do that anymore. There are schools, whether they're elementary, middle, or high, that have innovative programs, whether it's a focus on STEM. I can think of Rancho Mirage Elementary School as one of those. And my team, do we have any additional out there that I'm forgetting? I mean, of course, we have our charter school, but when we're thinking of magnet, that they really focus on, say, technology or STEM or STEAM. There are programs, excuse me? Thank you. International Baccalaureate. Thank you, Dr. Signore.
We also have dual language.
We do at Vista Del Monte, and of course our goal would be to expand that program throughout other schools as well.
The dual language kids, are they going to Raymond Cree this year?
Yes, they are. Very exciting. So they are there with their 6th grade class. We have 2 classes there, and we're supporting Raymond Cree with additional FTEs so that we can ensure that there's a very robust program for our students there. And Mr. Mares has been amazing welcoming them there.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. Number 8, the superintendent will ensure that all instructional programs, including both content and practice, are regularly evaluated and modified as necessary to assure their continuing effectiveness. Our interpretation is that all programs are evaluated annually by district staff and principals to assure actions and strategies are meeting student needs. Principals review instructional programs and make modifications to programs based on data in their SIPSAs. Program changes are articulated within school plans for student achievement, and all plans, with the noted exceptions, were submitted to the board for approval on November 10th, 2020 and June 22nd, 2021. Number 9, the superintendent will provide for the daily instructional hours and district calendar necessary to best serve the learning needs of students and achieve the board's results policies. Our interpretation is all students receive the appropriate number of instructional minutes as necessary to meet their needs. Now, each school year, bell schedules are submitted and instructional minutes are submitted and approved. As well as students have opportunities at certain school sites or through ACES and other after-school programs to participate in tutoring or enrichment. So even though we have those instructional minutes within the school day, we're always looking at those expanded programs to support students' needs and interests as well. Instructional minutes and days and minutes are increased or adjusted as needed to meet student needs, which is really highlights what I just stated. All students in the Palm Springs Unified School District attend school for at least the required number of minutes required for each school day by Education Code. Due to pandemic-related restrictions regarding in-person instruction, schedules were developed to comply with temporary state requirements related to distance learning for the 2020-2021 academic school year. And what I would like to say here is it seems as though they were adjusted and possibly that there were fewer minutes, but no, we had synchronous instruction and we had asynchronous instruction. So that combined, we were able to meet those instructional minutes. Number 10, the superintendent will protect the instructional time provided for students during the academic day by prohibiting interruptions due to unnecessary intrusions, unnecessary teacher time out of the classroom, or the scheduling of activities that can be scheduled during other times. Our interpretation is that interruptions to instruction due to unnecessary intrusions, teacher time out of the classroom, are significantly reduced or eliminated. The scheduling of activities that can be scheduled during other times takes place to protect instructional time. I do want to share that in this area, I know in the past there was always conversations about the amount of time that teachers were out of the classroom, say for professional development or training. And it's interesting when you're going through the school closure and you think you have to think of other ways and being very innovative in regards to providing time for teachers to receive professional development. And last year, we were able to do that without substitute teachers because we were able to work around the time when students were working asynchronously or after school. So it's something that we need to truly continue to reflect on so that we're not pulling teachers out of the classroom so that they're there the majority of the time that they can be with their students. Site principals and district office administrators actively work to reduce or eliminate unnecessary interruptions, and district-sponsored professional development was provided during 2-1-2 time, intersession breaks, and Saturdays whenever possible. Number 11, the superintendent will select textbooks and instructional materials that advance the achievement of the board's results policies and that achieve continuity, integration, and articulation of the curriculum by course and program. Our interpretation is that adopted instructional materials are aligned with articulated standards from one grade to the next. Adopted instructional materials have current standards embedded and integrated within the materials. And there is a sequence of courses and instruction which build foundational and prerequisite skills. Evidence of compliance. 100% of adopted materials are aligned to deliver coordinated instruction across grade levels, and PSUSD is adopting standards-aligned curriculum following the state recommended timeline and process. And 100% of courses and instruction is sequenced to build foundational or prerequisite skills. Number 12. The superintendent will regularly evaluate materials and textbooks and maintain a procedure for reviewing such materials upon formal request by a parent or other stakeholder. Our interpretation is that textbooks and related instructional materials are reviewed on the state board established cycle. There is a clear process in place for community review of textbooks. PSUSD regularly reviews textbooks and related materials in a cycle that coincides with the State Board of Education's standards-based instructional materials adoption cycle, and a public hearing is held annually to give the community opportunity to provide input on textbooks. Number 13. The superintendent will adequately monitor and control student access to and utilization of electronically distributed information. Our interpretation is that appropriate filters of electronically distributed information are installed and in place, such as Content Keeper, GoGuardian, Gaggle. Thank you, Mr. Carr. If he's here. He's not here, but Eddie, let's thank him for that. Awesome. Evidence of compliance: 100% of internet traffic and student communication is filtered at all sites and at all internet access points. And the district policy and regulation 6163.4, student use of technology, meets the SIPA requirement for an internet safety policy and technology protection measures, such as there are no infractions that violated the industry standard Children's Internet Protection Act. Number 14, the superintendent will ensure appropriate input from students, parents, teachers, administrators, and other staff members involved in the instructional program as textbooks are reviewed and selected. Our interpretation is that stakeholder groups have been consulted and their advice and counsel considered during the textbook selection is verified by the administrator in charge of the selection. And usually that administrator in charge of the selection is House and Educational Services. So our evidence of compliance is for all adoptions, the following protocol will be followed. We have a textbook adoption committee. They complete the textbook adoption process. They evaluate the materials. The committee is made up of teachers, site administrators, and teacher specialists. However, there's also opportunity for input from students, parents, and the general public. This is provided during the textbook adoption process. And there's always a 30-day public display of the recommended materials. Wow, that was 14.
I do have a question about
Yes.
what is the next textbook cycle that's up for adoption?
The next one is we have plans for history, social science, or social studies in elementary. We need to move forward with science adoption in high school, as well as looking at, there's going to be a new math framework coming out, so we need to really, as we know, looking at our math results, we need to determine whether or not we need to move forward with a new math program.
So the math will be looked at next year?
We're going to wait for the framework to come out, and then we'll determine that.
Okay. We don't quite know when that framework will be.
It should be soon. Yeah. Yeah. Keep our fingers crossed.
Okay, thanks.
Input or questions, feedback on the format of the presentation, being that this is our first OE presented in a board study session?
I personally like the format. I think it's easy for you to present. I think it's easy also for me to receive the information, so I appreciate that. Good, really good job.
Okay,
I
thank
agree.
you.
I agree.
Thank you.
It's great. It's much easier.
Thank you.
Thank you again to you
Thank
and your
you.
team.
Yeah.
Good job, Mr. Pfeffer. Everyone.
Thank you to my team. Awesome.
All right. So with that, we can recess until the open meeting beginning at 6 o'clock.